joining us today. I'm here with Dr. Paige Clayton, who's going to share with us a little bit about her profession in the world of pharmacy. Dr. Clayton, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Could you tell us a little bit about your background, please, where you were born and kind of what got you to where you are today?
Okay. Well, I was born in Ackerman, Mississippi, which is in central Mississippi, but I did not live there very long. My father was a football coach, so we moved from Ackerman to a town kind of close, Kosciuszko, Mississippi. I lived there until I was 9 years old. And then we moved to Tupelo, and that's where I went to junior high and high school and graduated from Tupelo. Then I actually, after I graduated, I went to Mississippi State and got a bachelor's in chemistry and physics and taught school for 2 years, and then went back to pharmacy school at Ole Miss and got my PharmD in the year 2000, which is supposedly the new generation, but it's actually been 20 years ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say were your biggest, or who were your biggest influencers growing up?
My biggest influencers as far as life goes would be my parents, my mother, my father. I'm my only child, so we were three peas in a pod, and they're very hardworking people, teachers by profession, and great community leaders. They believe in giving back and working hard, and they were my biggest influencers. But as far as pharmacy goes, my grandparents lived in a little bitty town called Ware, Mississippi, which is in the middle of the state. And there was a corner drugstore in that town, which was basically the only store besides a little grocery store. And that is where everybody in the community would gather and have coffee, ice cream. They go to the pharmacist for help about any ailment, any cut, scratch, bruise, broken bone. And I just loved the atmosphere in the corner drugstore. It was a fun place to grow up.
Wonderful. So you told us a little bit about starting out first doing your undergraduate work in chemistry and then coming back and getting your PharmD. Tell us about Ole Miss during that time. What's a favorite memory that you have?
Actually, my favorite memories were that my father was a football coach for Mississippi State at the time that I was attending Ole Miss Pharmacy school. So
No way.
Mississippi State football paid my way through Ole Miss
Pharmacy school.
Pharmacy school. But you know, I'm not a hater. I'm a dual
supporter.
Dual supporter. You know,
I like it.
And absolutely loved it. So football season was a lot of fun because I was a rebel in the off weeks, and then the Bulldogs to support my daddy.
That is so fun.
Yeah.
What brought you to pharmacy school? With starting with that background and then going into teaching, that's sort of a unique path.
Well, I actually was headed to med school after my chemistry and physics degree. And really, when it came down to it and headed to go, I did not know that that was necessarily the path I wanted to take, even though I had spent the previous 4.5 years going that route. So it was actually my father that looked at me and said, you need to take a year off, teach school, and then figure out where you want your life path to go. And it was the best decision I ever made. Taking that year off, ended up taking 2 years off in teaching, and decided that I still wanted to be in healthcare, but I did not necessarily want to live 24/7 for my profession, which is what I saw, not necessarily in profession, but in real life. When we would go to events for children, you know, the physicians were the ones that were having to miss out on the life of their family. And that just was not appealing to me anymore. Whereas I thought that it was the route I wanted to go. I didn't. And Pharmacy was, I did not want to be a nurse, nothing against nurses. That just was not, I'm not molded from that cloth. But pharmacy just provided that great opportunity to still have the patient care, the one-on-oneness, and going back to that corner drugstore, just that a lot of times pharmacy is the first place that people go to seek care. And I just liked it, and it was neat. And as luck would have it, the year that I went to pharmacy school was the year that the mandated PharmD was implemented at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
So instead of having to go 2 extra years with my chemistry and physics degree, I ended up having to go 4. So it was kind of like starting all over.
Yes. Quite throughout, but it seems like you definitely feel like you made the right decision.
Absolutely 100%. 100%. I mean, I'm not going to say every day's good, but most every day is a good day being a pharmacist. It really is.
Always wonderful to hear. So you've told us a little bit about teaching as your first job. What about your first role in pharmacy?
My first role in pharmacy, I actually did a community pharmacy practice residency at Marty's Pharmacy in Flowood. And I did a community pharmacy practice residency, where we tried to establish ambulatory adult medicine clinics to check diabetes, cholesterol, asthma, those types of things. And from there, built a practice in counseling gestational diabetic women in Flowood. And so I did that and ended up finding a niche for gestational diabetes care, and then hospice pain management was a huge part of what I did during that rotation or residency. And I built that into a full-time position after completing that residency year. And I stayed at Marty's Pharmacy for probably 12 years, I would say. And absolutely loved it.
That's awesome. Would you say that has been your favorite position in pharmacy, or what would you say has been your favorite job? And what do you love most about the profession?
I don't know if I would say it's my favorite. Every job that I've had in pharmacy has been my favorite at the time. Before I got married and had children and worked the independent pharmacy hours, I absolutely loved the one-on-one patient contact. I loved people coming to me for help and being able to provide them help. I love the compounding aspect. I've done a lot of compounding over the years, and that might be my favorite part, but really just being the problem solver and connecting the right patient with the right provider or caregiver has been the most rewarding, to see a person that did not feel good feel good.
That's awesome. So we've talked a lot about your background. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do now in pharmacy?
Now what I do is I work for Change Healthcare, which is a company based out of Brentwood, Tennessee and Augusta, Maine. And what we do is the prior authorization pharmacy criteria and the preferred drug list for the Division of Medicaid in Mississippi. Well, that's what I do. My company does that for multiple states, but I work solely for Mississippi and am the on-site clinical pharmacist that's embedded in the Division of Medicaid office in Jackson.
And so do you live in the Jackson area then?
I live in Flowood.
Oh, wonderful. Not far from me. My office or the pharmacy schools in Jackson. But I live in Gluckstadt, so not far away at all.
Oh yeah, not at all.
What advice would you have for someone who's interested in pursuing a career in pharmacy?
My biggest piece of advice is to, no matter how much you don't want to do it, when you are in pharmacy school, you need to try to get some type of part-time gig in a pharmacy, being a technician, being a cashier, being any kind of helper you can be. Even if you volunteer because you don't want to be stuck to a time schedule to be a working student, just to get your eyes and ears in a store. I did not do that. And hindsight, when I went to take the NAPLEX, which is the certifying exam to become a pharmacist, the questions that everyone else that had done that thought were the easy breezy questions, I struggled with because I had never seen it. I had never seen, to know that a Prevacid capsule was pink on one side, green on the other side. But I could tell you the pharmacology, the mechanism of action, the dosage for everything about the drug and what it was for to treat, but I didn't know what it looked like. And I had to study harder and and do things that if I had known, just having a couple of hours a week in a pharmacy would have helped me. I would have been much better off.
And then I think my last question for today is just how has COVID-19 affected your work schedule, your family life?
It has turned it upside down, but it has been a blessing in disguise. I've been very fortunate because I have worked on the flip side of the pharmacy claim, meaning that I'm on the business side and not the patient face-to-face side. I have had a little bit of, I call it stateside guilt, because inside me is the pharmacist that wants to be on the front line. So I've because I can't be out there because I'm not in a position to be out there. I've tried to, on the flip side of the pharmacy claim, make every single thing that I can easier for pharmacists as they're out there filling the prescriptions and taking care of the masses. So I've worked very hard with the state to try to lift any kind of prior authorization requirement or put any prior authorization requirement that we can to be electronic, to do that, just to ease the burden to the people that are out there serving. But it has been a wonderful thing for me because I do have middle school children and they have had to be schooled from home. And we have done that effectively. And they're upstairs, like doing their classwork during the day. I wake up early. I try to get all my work done by the time they're finished. So we just adapt and move on and miss our life outside these walls, but just try to do, the best we can. We have no choice.
Right? Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me today. I've really enjoyed it, and I know that our prospective students and alumni will as well.
Yes, the pharmacy school is great, and being a pharmacist is great. Never have doubted that.
Wonderful.